Hyperborean Physics, Fragments of Rosario Nimrod. The Mystery of Belicina Vilca 1. For the Gnostic, the world that surrounds us is nothing more than the ordination of matter made by the Creator God, the One, in the beginning, and which we perceive in its temporal actuality. Hyperborean wisdom, mother of Gnostic thought, goes further by claiming that space, and everything it contains, it is made up of multiple associations of a single element called archetypal quantum of energy, which constitutes a physical term of the archetypal monad, that is, of the absolute formative unit of the archetypal plane. 2. These quantum, which are true archetypal atoms, not formers or shape structures, each possess an indiscernible point by which the pantheistic diffusion of the Creator is realized. In other words, thanks to a specific system of polydimensional contact, the presence of the demiurge becomes effective in every ponderable portion of matter, whatever its quality. This universal penetration, when verified by people in different degrees of confusion, has led to the erroneous belief that matter is the substance of the One. Such are the vulgar conceptions of pantheistic systems, or those that allude to a spirit of the world or anima mundi, etc. In reality, matter has been ordered by the Creator and driven towards a legal development in time from whose evolutionary force not the slightest particle. 3. I have made this synthetic exposition of Hyperborean physics because it is necessary to distinguish two degrees of determinism. The world, as I just described it, unfolds, mechanically, oriented towards a purpose. This is the first degree of determinism. In other words, there is a plan whose guidelines are adjusted, and whose designs are set by the order of the world. The matter released into the mechanics of said order is determined in the first degree. But, as such a plan, it is sustained by the will of the Creator, and His presence is effective in every portion of matter. As we saw, it could happen that He, abnormally, influence in another way some portion of reality, either to teleologically modify its plan or to express its intention semiotically, or for strategic reasons. In that case we are facing the second degree of determinism. 4. Strategic reasons means the following: when the awakened man undertakes the return to origin within the framework of a Hyperborean strategy, he uses secret techniques that allow him to effectively oppose the plan. In these circumstances the Creator, abnormally, intervenes with all his power to punish the intrepid. Foundations of Hyperborean Wisdom 5. What is an indiscernible point? Answer: a region of the non-spatial entity, that is, non-coordinable. And what is the essence of such a region, if it is not extensive, that is, it is not spatial? Answer: the essence of the indiscernible point is transcendent time, the demiurge consciousness that flows through all entities. 6. First of all, it should be clarified that the content of this sub-article is an extract from the Gravis theory of Hyperborean wisdom that has been developed in detail in the book Hyperborean Physics. Here we will only present the main aspects of the theory explained in a conceptual way, that is, stripped of all the complex mathematical foundation that is exhibited there. 7. It has been assumed that the mass, responsible for the gravitational field, deforms or distortion of the space being necessary also, apart from the tension, differential and statistical calculation, appeal to non-Euclidean geometries. Thus complexity is added to complexity, and it is possible to take an increasing distance from the phenomenon itself, from its facticity. Well, Hyperborean wisdom provides an explanation of any different point, but one that perfectly understands the gravitational phenomenon and allows it to be mastered for the benefit of the Siddha's strategic objectives. 8. The thesis is formulated as follows: the gravitatory field is the power of the psychoideo archetype. 9. Physics supposes, and supposes well, that a relationship links the mass with the gravitational field. Where he is wrong is, from Newton, in the affirmation that such a relationship is of cause and effect, that is, that the gravitational field occurs by the effect of mass. With such a misconception it is not strange to observe the enormous hulks that must be manufactured to take advantage of airspace. And naturally the manufacturers of flying pots with metal engines and internal combustion, they would doubt our sanity if we ensure that the loyal Siddhas base in the archetypic concept of the gravity, have stone vehicles, for example, to move to the site they want, and even more if we add that such vehicles do not have a motor. But it is not a delusion but science, ancient, extraterrestrial science. 10. The gravis is the heaviest heavy. It is worth the redundancy of the psychoid archetypes, and their action is directly related to the spatial form, that is, extensive, of matter and energy. So the gravis, which is the last on the scale, is also the first that the demiurge precipitates when he prepares to organize a material plane. Without gravis no other archetype could evolve in matter. 11. The gravis, in effect, is the archetypus whose process is more veloce than any other in the material plan. This arises as a consequence of being the last of the archetypal scale and therefore, the one closest to the concrete matter, to which, precisely, he himself determines the effect of the gravis archetype, of its potential entalpy, which some call the gravitational field, is almost instantaneous, and that effect is nothing more than the procedural force with which the power of the archetype directs matter, the mass, to evolve towards the entalpy or center of gravity. 12. The potential entalpy of archway typo gravis spatially coincides, in the simples bodies, with that ideal point that the physic has denominated center of gravitat. 13. Indeed, the center of gravity is just a sash concept, an internal cultural object lacking concrete entity in the world. In the material entity, what actually exists and manifests is a direction of the recordatory force that appears to appear on a hypothetic center radicated in its interiority. This is a real tendency that induces reason to suppose the real existence of such a center, but the center of gravity itself, as the indiscernible points defined in E4, it can never really be reached from the exteriority of the ENT. 14. The concept of gravis that is capable of tending to its entalpy by unfolding in the smallest particle of matter gives rise to an unorthodox atomic theory that has been exposed in the book Hyperborean Physics and based on the definition of an archetypal atom or archetypal quantum. 15. It is worth reviewing, now, the two historical errors that we mentioned earlier. Newton's was to make the mass cause of the gravitational force, a force that, on the other hand, exists and is effectively proportional to the masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distances that separate them, just as Coulomb demonstrated in electric charges and Cavendish measured him with his mass balance. The reality is that, although the gravitational force is mathematically related to mass, it is not its cause but, in turn, the mass is the concrete effect, the act, of an archetype gravis. The gravitational force is thus the action of an archetypal power that proceeds from its entalpy and attracts towards its entalpy, which some call center of gravity. 16. Let's consider the second historical error. Leibniz, evidently thinking of a Hyperborean god, who has nothing to do with the demiurge computer of matter, the true god of this world, attributes to it absolute perfection, perfectio Dei, which would prevent you from creating two equal things. Thus, in modern philosophy and in later scientific thought, the principium identitatis indiscernibilium, the principle of identity of indiscernible things, prevails, which states that if two things are absolutely the same they must be the same thing. Furthermore, as this is manifestly impossible according to Leibniz, there cannot be two equal things, the creator would not have repeated himself. All this reasoning is wrong because it is based on the assumption that the universe has been created by a god of goodness and not by an imitating demiurge, as it really happens. But, despite Leibniz, the work of the demiurge is based on imitation and the material structure must naturally reflect this principle, contradicting the principle identitatis indiscernibilium. It is easy to understand if we start from an archetypal composition of the real. However, the Leibniz principium has been dogmatically incorporated into epistemology and unconsciously predominates in every scientific attitude referring to empirical or experimental observation of physical phenomena. This is not accidental, it obeys a synarchic trend that is not appropriate to develop here. The important thing is that the gravis theory contradicts the principium, and it does so because such a principle is completely false. Hyperborean wisdom states that there can be two equal things and points as an example to the potential entalpies of external entities, to their indiscernible nuclei, or to the centers of gravity determined by the gravis archetype. 17. Transcendent time as a fluent process also points to an entalpy, a super-entalpy called future. Indeed, the future can only be conceived as an entalpy, as the final perfection of a cosmic process of consciousness, the transcendent time, whose initium is the One, Brahma, or however you want to name the demiurge, and whose end, the entalpy of time, the future, is the One, Brahma, or whatever you want to name the demiurge. 18. The transcendent time, as we agreed in part 1, is transcendent for the microcosm, but, in truth, it is an immanent creep of cosmic consciousness, of the soul of the demiurge. And that consciousness has produced the archetypes whose processes concern us. From there, then, from time, transcendent time, everything real starts, and from there all interpretations of the real must also start, but it is not, already, of a mere dimension, as physics claims, but of the essential support of everything that exists. Only after time, after the transcendent time, space appears as an effect of the archetypal processes that develop in the planes of matter and energy. 19. By greatly simplifying the theory of Hyperborean physics, it can be concluded here that space is a second degree of transcendent time, or a gross state of time, a lower temporal category, a kind of time dropped, etc. The basis and justification for such a qualification comes from the fact that the space only appears in relation to the matery, it is produced by it, but matter always follows the gravis process, it cannot escape its plasma power because the gravis can, as specific entities of the last archetype of the scale, from cosmic consciousness, that is, from transcendent time, observing the extremes of the process, it is evident that space is caused by transcendent time through matter organized by gravis. 20. We have taken a great step. Let us now return to those questions about the potential entalpy and its coincidence with the center of gravity. If we apply the above concepts to the problem of the gravitational field, we will have to draw entirely different conclusions from those provided by physics. Consider a field of great mass, Earth for example. A. For physics, around the Earth there is a gravitational field. For Hyperborean wisdom, the power of the gravis archetype acts around the Earth. B. For physics, the mass of the Earth deforms the space by curving it in its vicinity. For Hyperborean wisdom, the mass of the Earth generates a curved space that is a reflection of the distortion that the gravis represents with respect to transcendent time. C. For physics, the center of gravity is located in the center of the Earth, where all the imaginary lines of force that describe the gravitational field converge. For Hyperborean wisdom, in the center of the Earth there is a point that coincides with the center of gravity, it is the gravis entelechia. 21. And, since the transcendent time is actually the demiurge stream of consciousness, it is understood that in each entity, from the indiscernible point, there is the impulsing the process of the entity with its wisdom aspect, from the potential entalpy, and coming the process of the entity with its consciousness time aspect, from the indiscernible point. 22. Above all, it is necessary to overcome the barrier of misunderstanding that reason will oppose when proposing apparent irreducible paradoxes. It should not be forgotten that we are facing a fearsome secret, which will not be easy to seize, at least not with impunity. The first obstacle is the problem, already examined in E4, that the archetype maintains its absolute uniqueness while manifesting itself in the plurality of entities. That is, if the indiscernible points are all one and the same thing, how can they be in different entities at the same time? If the indiscernible point of Earth is exactly the same as that of Venus, for example, how is it that millions of kilometers separate both planets? Answer: of course, this occurs because the indiscernible points are potential entelechies of the gravis archetype. Taking this into account, it is understood that the distance that separates the planets has nothing to do with the indiscernible points, since they finally coincide in the current future and no distance separates them into the present potential. And the same goes for any other entity that you want to consider. 2. 3. In the indiscernible nucleo of everything the potential entelequia of his universal archetype is found, which is indiscernible for the entelequia of another universal archetype. This strange property, that resembles the indiscernible nucleus to a pure nothingness, has its cause in the imitative way with which the demiurge has produced the universal archetypes as a replica of himself, of your aspects essential. That's why there is only one assembly and 10 archetypes taken with your assembly. This is important, neither 9 nor 11, 10 aspects of the one that determine the essence of all the entities of the universe. And a monad, perfect image of the one, whose formal covering is the gravis archetype and whose ontic manifestation is the archetypal quantum, a single monad repeated everywhere in cosmic space, in every entity, in every being itself, in every indiscernible nucleus that, therefore, is indiscernible and identical to any other archetype or to the ineffable one. The archetypes are only 10, like the aspects of one, but combined with many all make possible the enormous multiplicity of the entities. 24. But when things change, it is when carrying out a similar examination of the gravis, or of any other potential entalpy, because then the observer must admit the reality of the indiscernible points, you will not be able to distinguish one gravis from another and, in your sight, disappear the plurality of the ents to leave the singularity of the archetypus and, after it, a laterable phase of demiurge. Naturally, many will laugh at this possibility, which they will describe as absurd, and they will do well to rake. If you are not prepared to face the mystery, it is better that you laugh and remain ignorant, since there are countless who have locked in front of the reality of indiscernible points. There were mystics, for example, that suddenly they saw eyes in all things, or experimenters who viewed the world with expanded visual perception through some drugs and were horrified to see a living cosmos, provided with million eyes with which God observed them from all things. It is necessary to warn, therefore, about the insane danger that lurks in the being of every entity, in its universal term or purpose. 25. In fact, the country is only given the knowledge of the entities from their exteriority, it can only dialogue with nature or the world, take the design and put the meaning in the entity, but the being itself, the indiscernible point, the potential entalpy, must remain unknown to it. You will never know that has been constantly observed from all things by the eye, one and multiple, of Abraxas. 26. On the contrary, Virya is not only possible for the perception of being itself, but such an experience is part of the techniques of spiritual liberation. Outside of the real danger posed by such a confrontation with the demiurge, in the path of strategic opposition this constitutes a calculated risk, to the extent that it is available in advance and has been included as part of the technique. The direct confrontation with the demiurge allows, in effect, the domain of time, that is, to make the strategic area of the archhemony independent of the transcendent time of the macrocosm, the creation of its own time. 27. And in that inevitable face, in which the Hyperborean warrior and the demiurge fight face, the most difficult test to be affronted by the warrior will be the contemplation of the terrible face of demiurge. Of course, the demiurge is an actor with many masks, but here we refer to one of his aspects, the one that can be perceived in the being itself of the entities, that is, in the heart of all the entities of the world, whom it sustains and vitalizes from the entalpy gravis, that aspect that Hyperborean wisdom calls dragon of the world and the Hebrew Kabbalah Metatron. 28. In the entalpy of gravis, from the indiscernible points that are in all bodies, that is, from the transcendent time that is his consciousness, he is holding the material order. But he does not act through the gravis. Only I feel them. It is not the aspect achievement that matters in the indiscernible points but the aspect consciousness time. It is not the verb but the eye of demiurge. A multiplying incansibly in all creation but it is simple the same eye. 29. Let's look at some of such wonderful possibilities. He who has understood the gravis theory, for example, can search in himself, in his microcosm the indiscernible point and, through the thanking will, displacing the center of gravity outside his body, avoiding the weight, is saying, the tract that the earth exerts on his mass, it is the levitation. But, since its own indiscernible point is the same as that of that stone that is there, it will also be able to move it with an act of its will. It is the psychokinesia. But, when a skillfully designed material body is led to coincide in its entelchia with that of a human body, then a vehicle is available that travels without a motor, like those who have always manned Hyperboreans. And since at the indiscernible point there is spatial distortion, such vehicles may become invisible by temporary acceleration and not by high vibrations as argued by certain materialistic and synarchist ufologists. Letter from Nimrod de Rosario to Miguel Serrano 30. I wanted to give you a key, a big key, and for that I am going to demonstrate the first statement. You should know that Einstein failed to develop an acceptable mathematical theory to unify the phenomena field, gravitational and electromagnetic, phenomena that, in any case, they are already unified in reality because those that are incompatible are theories. Regarding the gravitational field, outside of Newton's equations, everything that has been advanced in the last 2 centuries has been in the pointed sense. Try to unify it with the electromagnetic field, for which there are Maxwell equations. Thus, by dealing with the gravitational field in the Einsteinian sense relativistic, it is necessary that we have a quite complex mathematical instrument called tensor. But if, for example, it is decided to interpret physical phenomena based on quantum mechanics, then we must resort to even more complex statistical formulas probabilistic that require the use of electronic computers. 31. On the other hand, it has been assumed that the mass, responsible for the gravitational field deforms or distortion of the space being necessary as well. Apart from tensor calculation, appeal to geometry is not Euclidean. Thus complexity is added to complexity and it is possible to take an increasing distance from the phenomenon itself, from its facticity. 32. Well, Hyperborean wisdom provides an explanation of every different point, but one that perfectly understands the gravitational phenomenon and allows it to be mastered for the benefit of the Siddha's strategic objectives. And such an explanation does not require the use of formal mathematics except when you want to develop a technology, in which case an esoteric geometry is used that is entirely outside the academic environments of the West. The important thing about this, and this is where one begins to be surprised, is the intervention of concepts that have been clearly exposed by Jung and Pauli, and the affirmation that the deviation from theoretical physics is much deeper than is usually thought. Indeed, the boldest criticisms have generally been centralized over Einstein, Planck, Bohr, etc., but they have never questioned Newton. And from him the error started. 33. The explanation is as follows, and attention, because an interrelation like this can be applied to almost any phenomenon other than the gravitational one. The gravitatory field is the power of the psychoiding archetypus. 3. 4. Let us remember that for both the Neoplatonists, as for Leibniz, as well as for the Hindu science of the great breath, etc., there are great severals in the archetypal manifestation. The subtlest archetypes or monads are found in also more subtle planes, traversing an entire density scale until descending into matter, which is the grossest substance. No doubt you already know all this, so it is not worth repeating it so that you understand me. The point is that there is an archetype that is necessarily the last on the scale, such is the archety gravis. Gravis is the heaviest heavy, worth the redundancy, of the archetypes, but not all them, but of a special genus that is related to the space order of the materie. So the gravis, which are the last of the scale, they are also the first that the demiurge precipitates when is prepared to organize a physical plane. Without gravis no other archetype could evolve in matter. 35. But it is convenient to be clear in this, the archetype of this glass that I have here, in my hand, is in psychosphere, or in the Akasa globe. According to the science of the breath, such an archetype is a structure of forms, that is, it supports form and form is its concrete actuality. The gravis, on the other hand, is there, in the glass, as a material substrate, and it is he who determines its weight in relation to other gravis that occupy space. Earth, for example. The gravis is not a structure of way, or is indifferent to the form itself, but, as a psychoid archetype, it has a power that leads it to unfold in an evolutionary process. 36. The culmination of any evolutionary process, in any psychoid archetype, is a perfection called entelchy, which, curiously, coincides with the archetype itself. And here comes another definition of Hyperborean wisdom, to which we will refer again later. The entelchia of a gravis archetypus spacey coincides in the simple bodies with that ideal point that the physicers denominated center of gravity. 37. Let us remember what Dr. Jung said about the irrepressibility of archetypes, and we will understand why the gravitational field resists physiognathic analysis. Let's take a material body and deposit it in space, away from Earth or any other planet. We say that the body has a gravitational field around it, and we check it by observing how it attracts towards its center of gravity, or entelchy, other objects of lesser mass. If the body is at rest, we cannot describe its field, we only know about it for its effects on other bodies. The field, if invisible, property equivalent to the irrepressibility of the Jungian archetypes. But the field is not the archetype but his power, which tries to update itself in the entelchy. Matter is always a concrete active gravis in its evolutionary unfolding, regardless of the form such matter exhibits. But that, the perception of matter is everything we can know about gravis, because it is pure power, it is a to become, and that is why we say allegorically that is hidden behind matter. If we violate the intimacy of the process, if we invade the field and delve into the matter to find the center of gravity, the entelchy, we will never find anything. Without matter there is no gravis, but if we break it and multiply we will have many potential gravis. If we invade the field and delve into the matter to find the center of gravity, the entelchy, we will never find anything. Without matter there is no gravis, but if we break it and multiply we will have many potential gravis. If we invade the field and delve into the matter to find the center of gravity, the entelchy, we will never find anything. Without matter there is no gravis, but if we break it and multiply we will have many potential gravis. 38. This topic that we have touched on is a point of capital importance, and, before answering the questions raised, we are going to clarify that other error that we mentioned at the beginning. Leibniz, evidently thinking of a Hyperborean god, who has nothing to do with the demiurge computer of matter, he attributes to him absolute perfection, perfect day, that would prevent you from creating two equal things. 39. Every archetype tends towards its entelchy. But at the origin of the movement, the first impulse was produced by a power that contained within itself the perfection that is intended to be achieved. Movement is thus an evolutionary development that aims at a purpose that has also been the beginning. As a purpose, entelchy is something that is not yet, which must be reached, that is, something future. We now come to the most complex part of the problem. Entelchy is something future that works in the present as a possibility to be. Since the only connection between the entelchy of a thing and the concrete thing is the process of the archetype, this process is the true possibility that an entelchy is. But everything process occurs in time. 40. Time as a flowing process points, then, also to an entelchy, a super-entelchy called future. Indeed, the future can only be conceived as an entelchy, as the final perfection of a cosmic process of consciousness, time whose initium is the one, Brahma, or whatever you want to call the demiurge, and whose end, the entelchy of time, the future, is the one, Brahma, or whatever you want to call the demiurge. 41. Time is an immanent influx of cosmic consciousness, and that consciousness has produced the archetypes whose processes reveal us. From there, then, from time, everything starts, and we are not in the presence of a physical dimension but of the essential support of the existing whole. Then, secondly, the space appears, through archetypal processes in the different states of matter and energy. It is not entirely correct to do so, or at least would require prior clarification, but space can be considered as a second degree of time or as a gross state of time, a lower category or a fallen time. The foundation and justification for such a qualification comes from the fact that the space only appears in relation to matter, is produced by it, but to matter always follows the process of the gravis. It cannot escape its plasma power, since gravis falls are the last archetypes of the scale from cosmic consciousness, that is, from time. 42. We go back to the beginning. But now we can understand it. There is spatial coincidence but not temporal. There cannot be, because the entelchi is the future aspect of the archetypo gravis. What can be expected, then, from the center of gravity, according to psychophysics? An indiscernible point, that is, a point that contradicts the Leibniz principle identitatis indiscernibilium, occurs like this because the entelchi, as the final perfection of the archetype, is the archetypus of the same, since the entelliquia gravis promotes a process that cannot be interrupted and that goes from power until the entelliquia that is in the future. Your processal way opens a gap in space, distortion, producing a topological contact between different plans. Strictly speaking, what happens in the indiscernible point is that the entelchi regenerates a point in space, transforming it into time, what elevates, if you like. 43. Why indiscernible? For something to be indiscernible, it must be able to be compared with something exactly the same with absolute equality, that is, that it occupies the same place and occurs at the same time. There must be simultaneous coincidence for now. Only then would we be in a position to declare that something is indiscernible. Well, and here I think I am touching one of the greatest mysteries that exist. The entelliquies of all gravis are indiscernible. In other words, in all bodies, do not care your size, there is an indiscernible point. 44. Unfortunately, for the demiurge, we are not mystics and we are not impressed by his dreadful multiplicity, and, although he looks at us permanently and permanently from everywhere, it will not achieve any other effect than affirming ourselves on the reverse path of return to origin. After this luciferic bravado, I continue. 4. 5. The gravis theory, and its consequence, the indiscernible points, based on the concepts of Jung and Pauli, allow, apart from building flying plates or lifting stones of 1,000 tons, explain almost all parapsychological phenomena and thaumaturgy or magic of any kind, excluding only all phenomena other than force fields, that is, what we call charismatic, for which there is another theory. 46. In various parts of my book, I wrote that whenever a secret path of liberation is followed, of the 7 proposed by Hyperborean wisdom, there will be some time when there will be a confrontation with the demiurge, and that contemplating his terrible face can be dangerous if he does not possess a value without limits. Now it is clear what I meant. In the entelchi of gravis, from the indiscernible points that are in all bodies, that is, from the time that is his consciousness, he is holding the material order. 47. But he does not act through the gravis. Only you feel it. It is not the aspect logo that matters in the indiscernible points but the aspect consciousness. It is not the verb but the I of demiurge. A multiplicated I infinitely in all creation, but it is always the same I. There is me. An I that contemples itself, that is perpetually addent from itself. 48. You can also, through the indiscernible points, perform a bilocation, trilocation or polylocation. As long as you proceed before close the eyelid, extend the membrane that covers Abraxas eye, that is, capture a sign that prevents his look, lover and murderer, from perching on the one who has dared to look out into the abyss. Dared to look out into the abyss. Dared to look out into the abyss. Dared to look out into the abyss.
Yeah. I metamorph phrases to glaciers, have them come together at liquid stages, then turn down the temperature and have them frozen up to a solid foundation. Now added to that is well-produced amazement. The crash is enough to have the world tipped off its axis a nudge. It'll take the likes of Jedi minds to construct new longitude lines in order to get around, but now you're asking for too much. For minds put together are like an alternative source of energy, like electricity generators, separators of the whack rap to the well-renounced individuals playing huge parts, life's narrators. Rhyme gladiators is what we're referred as. Food for thoughts taken off of your plate, instead you serve trash. Icon and logic serve as my accomplices, and bring our own form of trinity to show you how on it is. Rhyme patterns come across as astonishing, so I have all right to feel myself to the point of genitalia fondling.
We the 3 MCs that rock that shit. Pick the 12-inch up and knock that shit.
I spread the rhyme via viral infectious faculties, apply chiropractically so rappers cannot come back to me simply out of respect, or suffer the consequence, the effect of which is that of absent father neglect, wreaking havoc on ego speaking magic. Casted a curse to fashion MCs, Parisian fabrics, and I'm wandering through the labyrinth. As far as cutting careers shown on mics, I'm what the NYPD is to entrapment, epitome of half-bent. Yet schooled engineers peep the structure of my mind. Now they wonder how the math went. L was made to absent, which is evident by my descent, spreading east to west like European settlement sequence. And even I'm captured. Self-destruct explosive devices react before my mind has ever mastered, which makes me a Trojan horse of sorts, draining your plasma to your rhythm section organ contorts. My stats in the orbit of sport, draw my foolish query, then the Warren report, and the single bullet theory.